lively lot here. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Angela Rippon and Martin Daubney.
And it's time for us to get inside the papers now with our lively duo, the broadcaster Claire Muldoon, and joining her is the deputy editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers.
So Fraser, I want to kick off with a story that's really got me going.
No pun intended there, Mark. Come on.
This is the front page of the Express, an outrageous hour-long rant by FIFA boss Gianni Infantino sparks outrage.
I mean, every aspect of this rant is kind of brilliant and cringeworthy in equal measure. It's the funniest thing, you know. We're all thinking, what's the Qatar World Cup going to be like? What a shambles it's going to be. And this has kicked it off in spectacular fashion. So not only has Gianni Infantino went on this strange rant about how he feels like Qatar, he feels persecuted. Unfairly persecuted because he once had, because when he was a child he grew up with red hair and freckles, so he knows what it's like to be bullied. So he gave this kind of almost sort of Meghan Markle-esque speech about I am a migrant worker, I am Arab, I am black, I am disabled.
I'm Spartacus.
So there's that aspect to it which was just shameful and ridiculous. But also he's tried to defend Qatar's human rights record on the basis that, well, the West was evil too once. You know, he said that we had 3,000 years of human rights abuses and we in the West should apologise for the next 3,000 years.
But what about the Egyptians and, you know, what they did when they built the pyramids? And the man doesn't know his history.
We would like to think we've actually evolved.
Yeah.
Do you not?
This is the bizarre thing. You know, it's one thing to say that you know, don't criticise Qatar, kick politics out of football. You know, it'd be a bit shameless, but it'd be less shameless than this. You know, him saying that actually the West is worse than Qatar and has more to apologise for. It's just
if there wasn't a booze ban, I think it'd been on the sherry because it was a really outrageous and ridiculous rant. And if you're going to talk about reparations, Gianni, and what about the Romans paying something to England?
Yes.
Sorry, but what did the Romans do for us?
Well,
I tell you what, why don't we ask John Cleese where he's got his throat to be used in the year?
But it's just incredible, isn't it? I think people just want the tournament to start now. But we actually get some football going with it instead of all this nonsense about politics.
You wonder whether the politics will sort of you know, disappear as soon as the games get going. Often that is what happens. But the other thing that I suppose is extraordinary about Infantino's rant is it just goes to show that you can use kind of woke language to defend literally anything.
It was a very lame attempt to justify what's going on.
Exactly. It was that classic sort of decolonised kind of rhetoric. Very funny.
Claire, I think we're going to hang the flags out, aren't we, and say yes, a result.
Meaning what, Angela?
Well, we had this discussion, the story that's on the front page of The Sun, old housing boss is sacked. Well, we were talking about this yesterday, in fact, and I know you feel very strongly about it.
I do. The housing, we're talking about obviously the Rochdale scandal, not the grooming gangs this time in Rochdale, something, you know, equally as bad. There's a death of this gorgeous young lad, only 2, died from breathing difficulties because his home fell short of any standard.
He had spores in his lungs.
Any standard. And this is a disgusting indictment of our housing crisis per se in this country, but something specific to Rochdale. And thank goodness the housing boss was sacked. I couldn't believe it on Friday when the committee stood by him. This is a man on £185,000 a year, which is a lot of money, more than the PM's being paid, more than 98% of the country is being paid because he's in the top 2%. This is on his watch. This happened on his watch. The family told the council, told the local authority it was not fit for purpose in 2017.
Yes.
They did nothing. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in this country that are living in substandard accommodation, and to think that shelter is a fundamental human right to have shelter, and yet it's at a cost, and it's at a human cost. This isn't Victorian Britain. This isn't Dickensian times. We are supposed to be a civilised, democratic, forward-thinking country because let's be honest, we've got so much diversity and inclusion going on. It's trained in the NHS, it's trained in lots of the big companies, and yet people are dying in homes in this country.
And it's not as if we don't know. We haven't got engineers, we haven't got building experts who know that mould and damp in the homes is really, really bad.
You've got landlords that don't address it either. This is the private sector. This is the public sector.
But you've got the arrogance of being, they were told, paint over it.
Yes. And then there's other people. No, but it's worse than that. There's people in this country on Twitter that are saying, well, the parents should have taken more of a healthcare view. They should be bleaching it. There is nothing that can do to help this.
No, that's a basic lack of understanding about what mould is and how it works.
Yes, and we had Grenfell happen as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the local authorities have got blood on their hands. Now, I've used that term a lot when I'm doing paper reviews, but in this case, it's so justified.
I think the Grenfell comparison is really important because, you know, in both cases, what you have is a, you know, local community or ordinary people raising the alarm to the authority.
Yes.
You know, the people of Grenfell knew that there were serious fire risks in their building. They set up groups to try and, you know, petition around it. And in this case, you said, you know, this family were warning about the mold since 2017. They were just not listened to. Working class people are just totally ignored, written off. Their concerns don't matter. And then the result is tragedy.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on now to the story about the Twitter poll that's reinstated Trump. Before we do that, I'd just like to remind GB News viewers we're offering our own Twitter poll all morning about would you vote again for Brexit, given the chance, because the front page of the Sunday Times today is a reintegration into the EU, a softer Swiss-style approach. So far, GB News viewers are very, very clear. 82% of you are saying that you would vote Brexit again. Good on you. Let's move on to this.
And we have to say, we do have to say that Number 10 have denied the story and said it is not true.
Well, they would do, wouldn't they? Let's move on.
They know how people feel about it.
We have to say that.
Let's move on to another Twitter poll. 18 million people voted, Fraser, on this Twitter poll to reinstate Donald Trump, one of Elon Musk's first actions as a free speech advocate. Trump's back. What's the story?
Well, Elon Musk promised to turn Twitter into a free speech platform, and this is the first sign of that. Because although, you know, he's been in charge for a few weeks now, there haven't actually been any big changes to the algorithm and things like that. Although people claim, quite erroneously, that there's more harassment or whatever than there used to be. And he always promised that he was thinking about bringing back Trump. And it is worth taking a step back. You know how mad it was that Trump at the time was the sitting president of the United States, at the time the elected president of the United States, and he was banned from social media based on the decisions taken in the boardrooms of Silicon Valley tech firms. Now that is an extraordinary sort of thumb on the scales of democracy. Whatever you think about Trump and his various rants, and they were, you know, around that time getting increasingly crazy, getting, you know, bordering on sort of election denial. But surely it has to be up to the people to decide whether they want to listen to that, whether they agree with him.
And also there was a huge conversation about the type of people who were banned, because the Taliban still had a Twitter account, didn't they?
Yeah,
the Taliban were okay, but
Taliban's still on Twitter. I think the Ayatollah of Iran is still very much on Twitter.
Well, they obviously went alphabetically.
Fit there, and it's true.
TA was fine, but by the time they got down to TR, that was it. just over and out.
But it was outrageous. But there have been a lot of hissy fits about this. Been a lot of pearls being clutched. What's your take, Claire? I mean,
Trump back? I mean,
Trump,
as long as he doesn't get back into the White House, I think that's fine. Just have him on Twitter. Just let him go. People have got a choice. You know, they've got a free. They can follow him or not. They can block him. They can silence him on Twitter. I mean, people are so reactionary these days, and they're so like clutching. Oh my gosh, Trump's back. Who cares? What difference does it make?
Well, I think Liberals care a lot about this, because we are coming up to the him being put forward as a presidential. Well, he's put himself forward. He is going to run, and he will rely a lot on Twitter to get his message out. I think this is
I think the Republicans will rely more on him as a PR machine. But
look how
clearly,
that failed.
yes, exactly. And then people that don't have, they do have short memories. Will they forget, or won't they forget the storming of the White House when Trump left? All the FBI files in Mar-a-Lago that were taken. I mean, the man is nuts. I mean, he's not functioning.
But it's interesting to see he hasn't actually tweeted anything yet.
Yeah.
Has he
So
not?
nothing has gone out. He's famously on Truth Social, like his own platform that he backs. Will he snub it? Will he say, no, I don't want to come back? Or is it just too much for him to resist?
He's suggesting that he will snub it, but I mean, it's such a huge method of communication that he'd be foolish not to get back on it. And it's talking about his kind of return to the presidential run. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that he was a kind of drag on Republicans in the midterms. So I would suspect he won't be as successful as he was in 2016 when he won the presidency. But maybe it would be good to have him on Twitter because he's the best tweeter of all time, even if he wasn't a very good president.
Well, he gives you
He's
all a good laugh, doesn't he?
He is one of the funniest people on the planet.
Super. Well, Fraser and Claire, thank you very much.
You're
We'll see you again
welcome.
in the next hour. Cheers.